Welcome to video 11 in series 3, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use layers for detection. So it is pretty common that in a game, when you fire a raycast or you use something I'll show you later called an overlap sphere, you only want it to hit objects of a certain layer, and that increases the efficiency of your code, or in the end your game, by quite a bit, because sometimes when you have like an overlap sphere, which you'll see later, hitting lots and lots of colliders and then bringing back information on all of them, it consumes a bit of your performance. So if you have it only hit objects of a layer that you're interested in, then that dramatically reduces the workload. So it's not hard at all, it's pretty easy, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start off by making a new layer, just as an example, and I'm going to make a new layer called item. Well, one moment, caps lock is on, so let me turn that back. Okay, item, and I'll make a new cube. I'll just reset it, I'll move it, yeah, about there. Okay. And I'll change this cube's layer to item, and I'll just say item cube. Alright, and then I'll make a new script, and I'll call this script say detection. So what I'm going to do is to place this detection script on the first-person character. It'll behave just like the shoot script. It'll also be firing a raycast, but instead of waiting for the player to click, I'll just have it shooting out all the time at intervals. So I'll just go ahead and open it up. And as usual, I'll just change the line endings here and now. Alright, change the namespace. Okay, just drag that up there. Alright. Okay, and then I'll put in a new variable here. I'll put it private, raycast hit, just call it hit. Whoops, not HTI. Put it hit, and just make a new new method here, and I'm just gonna call this detect items. Detect items. I will also add in a new variable as well. I'll start with a public. I'll show you both ways. It's going to be called a layer mask, and I'm going to call it detection layer. That's the layer I'm interested in, so this variable is of the type layer mask. And why don't I go show you that in the inspector right away, what that looks like. There you go, detection layer, and now you can select which layer you're going to be interested in, and the raycast that I'm going to make will only touch items of this item layer. Okay, so this is one way to do it. I'll show you another way a bit later. Okay. And I'll add in a float here as well. I'll put it private float check rate. And I'll put it to say half a second. And then I'll put in here a private float next check. Okay. Now I'm going to say down here, if time is greater than next check, okay, then in that case I will be firing the ray, so I will say next check is equal to time.time plus check rate. And you saw this earlier, how this works. It's pretty simple. And then inside of that I'll say if physics dot raycast. And what kind of a raycast is it? Well, you remember, I'm gonna have it start from the player's position. I will also do something right here. I'll set up initial references, void set initial references. I'll add in a new variable that I need. I'll put that private transform, my transform. Remember the caching of the variable. So my transform is equal to transform. Okay, now that I've got that, and I'll make sure to establish it in the start function as well, since I remember right now. Okay, and then I'll come back here. So starting from the position of my transform dot position, I'm not going to worry about the transform point at this point in time. I guess I don't need to just at the moment. My game object, my player is not complicated enough to be too worried about that. Okay, I'm going to need a range as well. So I'm just looking for which argument set is the most applicable to me. See, I could make it so that it gives me out info, and I think that's exactly what I would like to do. So I think, let me think. So array must be the next one. Alright, and this is the one. So number 15 is the one I'm after. The origin, direction, then the out, give me out the information, then the range, and finally, what layer this raycast can hit. Okay, so this is the one I'm out for. So out hit, not hide flags. Out hit, right. And then the range, how about I just make a new variable for that? So I'll put it private float range is equal to, say, 5 meters, or 5 units. And put in here range, and then finally detection layer. Okay. So if the raycast hits something of this layer, it'll now give me information on that. And what I'll do is I'll just say debug.log hit.transform.name. And maybe I'll just put in here plus and a space is an item. Alright. Now, of course, I need to call this. It's not doing anything. Detect items. That method's not doing anything at all. So I'm going to call it inside of update. So detect items. Alright, so it seems to look pretty good. The only way to know is to go back to Unity, look for errors, and then give it a shot. So I'll just run it, see what happens. There you go, it's detecting it. Item cube is an item. And of course the check rate is every half second, so that's why I'm seeing something all the time. Now another thing you could do is to actually draw on the screen, like I'll show you that when we get to the chapters for Series 3, but just have on the screen a label that shows the name of the item that we're detecting, and then the player can press E and pick it up. But that's for later, that's for much later. I just thought I should show you this right now, and of course it only detects that cube. It won't detect anything else like the floor or anything. It's only detecting the actual item cube itself. Okay, now the next thing I wanted to show you was, alright, so what do you do if you need this to be private? So it's very easy when you set a layer mask variable to public, then you can go and select which layers are can be touched by whatever it's being called in. So that's very easy, but when you make it a private variable, it's more complicated. So let me set it to private. It's not immediately obvious. How do you set the layer? In the layer list, that item layer you saw is item 9, but you can't assign it like that. So there is a Unity answers question on that. How do I use layer masks? And it is it's a really good question, and the answers are really good too. So the first answer immediately shows how to actually assign the layer to the layer mask variable, but then the next answer really explains what on earth is going on and what is this layer mask. So let's type the code first. It'll look really strange. So first of all, I'll say in set initial references that detection layer is equal to a 1 bit shift a 9. So shift, turn on the 9th bit away from the right, turn on that flag to indicate that this is the detection layer. So now that I've done that, let me just go and test that I've done it correctly. Okay, so just clear that, hit play. Yep, it's working. Item cube is an item, and of course it's a private variable, so now I can't see anything in the inspector. Though there is a way to expose private variables. It's called serialize field. It's an attribute. So if I put in here serialize field, you can set it from the inspector beforehand, and you can also see what it is in the inspector in Unity. So if I try that again, so if I click here, there you go, you can see detection layers there again. In fact, I can set it from here, or I can just hit play and then see that it gets set to item. So the code is running correctly. So I thought I should just show you that. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. But anyway, I'll just wipe that off. Not necessary, since I do know it works and there's no need for that. So coming back here, so what is this funny stuff? Well, I'm not a knowledgeable person myself on it. I'm not a computer scientist or a software programmer. So let's go and have a look at the answer. So remember, you can Google this. How do I use layer masks? And then come down and read this one. So what the author is saying is that a layer mask in Unity is basically made up of 32 bits, and depending on which bits are 1, that's the layer that is set. So for example, if in my case item is layer 9, right? So that means for me, I have to count the bits from the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So for me, that bit needs to get set to 1, and then that means I have set my layer mask variable to the item layer. So that's what he's explaining, and he's also explaining that you can set multiple bits to 1, and that's how you are able to target multiple layers with the same layer mask variable. And the author above explains how to actually set a layer mask variable to consider more than one variable. So he explains here that this is how you do it. So I suppose I can try it out myself, see what I can do in terms of that. So how about I give that a shot? Let's see what happens when I try it. So I'm going to say here, I also want the weapon layer. So let me try this. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Alright, I'll try that. Perhaps I need to have brackets. Well, let's see what Unity says. Will it complain? Oh, and how about I do put back on a serialized field, so I can see it in the inspector straight away. Come back here and then just wait for it. Okay, it's loaded. Hit play. There we go. Weapon and item. Right, so that worked nicely. Alright, I'll just revert that back. Done. So that's it. That's how you can set two, I guess, bits on the layer mask variable in one go. And yeah, I guess you just keep adding to that depending on how many bits you want to turn into one, and that's the flag enabled. And that's it. That's the layer set. So that's what you needed to know for setting layers, for setting the layer mask variable. And you will need to have it private from time to time. Like there are just some cases where you don't want to set it in the inspector. It might be a prefab or something like that. And yeah, it's just not convenient to set it up inside of the inspector. Alright, but anyway, so that's it for this video. You've done quite a bit. In the next video, I think I will be showing you how to use layers. I'm not finished with layers. As you can see, layers are incredibly powerful. In the next video, I'll probably show you just a quick bit of how you can use layers to, well, collide into stuff or not have stuff collide into each other. Alright, well, thanks for watching and see you in the next video.